Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Mike, and today we're going to be covering how to create your own frequency separation action, how to smooth skin, a couple of different ways how to use frequency separation, both with brushes, the mixer brush mainly as well, and the lasso tools and blur filters. We'll go up here to our actions tool here. And if we come down to the bottom here, you've got a number of icons. We'll just go to the plus. And this is a new action. We're going to name it. Now, this is an 8-bit image. So I'm going to put 8-bit. The 16-bit images will have their own frequency separation one. All you need to do is repeat these steps exactly, but once you've converted your image to 16-bit, or when you bring it in from Lightroom into 16-bit. We're going to start off with the 8-bit version. I'm just going to set the color to red, and I'm going to hit record. So that's running in the background now. It's recording everything that I'm doing. I'm going to duplicate my background layer twice, Command and J, or if you click and drag it down to here. I'm going to name the layer underneath low frequency, and that is the color. So I'm just going to put in brackets color, just building good habits so you know exactly what it is. The one above it, I'm going to call high frequency, in brackets, that's the detail. There we go. I'm going to turn the high frequency layer off for now. And what we're going to do is click on our low frequency or color layer, and we'll go to filter, noise. A lot of people use dust and scratches. I use median. I found that's given me the best result. I'm going to go with median. Now, the object here is we'll click in the image using this square here to show us what's underneath. So this. I'm going to zoom out a little tiny bit. And now the idea with doing this is to increase the radius of the median until the texture is gone. However, the model is still visible, not too blurry. There's not massive blurring and muddying between the lines. So we go up to here, see that's way too much. Eyes have just vanished. Still too much, still too much. So I think we can still say maybe around this point. I'd say about there. Maybe even a little tiny bit more. Something like that. So we'll go to 17 for now. This is all going to be customizable later. We'll hit OK. And go to our high frequency layer and turn it back on. And we will go to image, apply image. There we go. And this will pop up like this. Now, the layer that we want to use is not merged overall everything of the layers. So we'll click on that drop down, and we want to use our low frequency or color layer as the channel, as the layer rather that we want to use. Set the opacity at 100%. The blending mode we will change to subtract, and the scale to 2, and the offset to 128. And that's all you need to do for that bit. We'll hit OK to apply all of that. We then want to set the blending mode of our high frequency or detail layer to linear light. So we'll just come all the way down here, set that to linear light, and your image should look exactly the same as it did before you started doing this. So we will now select both of them, click top one, hold down shift and click on that, and we'll group them together, Command and G or Control and G, and we'll name that frequency separation. There we go. You don't really need to put the 8-bit in, but I like to keep everything organized. And before I end the action, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to create a new layer, Shift Command and N, or Shift Control and N, and I'm going to call it brush. In fact, I'm going to call it color work. Color work. So that's going to sit nicely in the middle there. It's just a blank layer. And that's done. We'll go back into our actions and we will press stop. So that has created frequency separation 8-bit action for us there. The problem with this now is if I was to hit play, it will automatically run the action at the median level that I've already set. So there we go. It's done it and it's perfect. However, if I was to put in a different image, I definitely 100% won't want the same amount of blur. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to jump into my frequency separation action, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says median. Now there's a little box to the side here. I'm just going to check that. And that basically puts a pause into the action and tells the action that you want to make a change to the calculations of parameters you've already put in. So now if I hit play on my frequency separation action, it will pop up on the median box, which means I can then go, well, that was maybe a little bit too much. Let's dial that back a little bit more. So you can customize it for every single image now. So there we go. Let's hit OK. And that is your action done. What you would do is you create an entire same action with that. We delete that. You'd import from Lightroom, but with a 16-bit image, and then save the action as frequency separation 16-bit, because they run slightly differently. 16-bit preserves a lot more color information, a lot more depth. If your computer will run it nicely with all the blurring and everything, then do that instead. I don't use 16-bit for the sake of these tutorials, because sometimes my computer just says no. and it just goes really slow, and I just end up swearing at it, and then I have to make loads of cuts in the video. So we're going to stick with the 8-bit at the moment. So Command and Z to undo that. I'm going to run my action, and then for part 2 of this, we are now going to run through how to actually use the action we've just created. The way frequency separation works, high frequency is all of our detail. So all of our sharpness, all of our blemishes and everything that we have here. We want to give it the best chance that we possibly can. Ordinarily, I would go through and I would edit out using the healing brush, any of the bigger blemishes and everything like that. I'm not going to do it for the sake of the tutorial, because I'm going to show you the power that you can actually get from the frequency separation. So it can easily cope with all this. It's just easier to use the healing brush first. We're going to start off with the brush method of doing this, with the mixer brush. The way I usually do it is I will turn off my high frequency layer. That means all the detail is not being affected. It's not being touched. I will go down to my low frequency or my color layer, and this is where I'm going to do my work. As anyone that's watched any of my tutorials before knows, though, I do not like to work destructively. You always want to back up, so I'm going to Command and J or Control and J to just duplicate it, so I've got a copy. I'll head into my brushes, so just B. However, I don't want my ordinary brush. I want the mixer brush. So I'm going to press Shift and B until we find the mixer brush. Now, the settings that I've got up here are pretty much what I leave it at for this kind of work. So wet 25, low 25, mix 10, flow. Flow I will adjust constantly. However, you want to make sure this is checked so it'll clean the brush after every use, after each stroke. And all we're going to do is hold down Control, Option, or Command and Alt, and click and drag to adjust the size of your brush up and down to just the hardness of the brush. You're going to use a nice soft brush for this. And the way the mixer brush works is it will push your pixels, a bit like the smudge tool, except it will take into account, it's a lot better. It's a lot easier to just work without smudging everything together. It's like a big blunt instrument, that. Whereas this is a lot more subtle. So don't right click. So make your brush nice and big. Your flow will adjust up and down. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. And what it'll do, you probably won't see like a huge effect with it, but let's say this bit under the eye here, if I zoom in, so see this darker area here, make my brush a bit smaller, and I'm going to take the pixels from the light area here, and I'm going to drag them over the dark area. And what you'll see happening, I have to do it a few times, is it will take the lighter area and it will push it over the darker area. And all you're doing with this is we're just going to push the shades into each other. So this is very bright on the edge, on the tip of the nose here. So if I wanted to continue that brightness, I'd click and drag across. If I wanted to get rid of it, I'd click and drag downwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this slightly lighter area. It's almost like you're working with clay. You're just pushing the tones to get a nice blend. You can lower your flow, but this is working fine at the moment. So let's say this shadowed area, I'd take the lighter area and I'd just move it inwards. Just until the shade slightly disappeared. There we go. So that's given a nice smooth result. And you basically just work your way through, just evening out the tones. Make sure you're not like really going over the top and just overly lightening or overly darkening everything. You just need to keep a little bit of a subtle hand. It's very easy to overdo this. I'm only going to work on the face here because I tend to waffle. So rather than having another 40-minute tutorial that could have got done in a lot shorter a time, that'll be it. I think though, like I said, when you're really taking pride in your work, you don't need to it's not just a case of rush it as fast as you possibly can. Take your time, just get it right, and then yeah, be much happy. So what we're going to do, just going to say essentially that amount of blending work is good. I'm going to zoom out a little bit again so I can see any extra bits that might need adjusting as we go. And then I'm going to turn my high frequency or detail layer back on. So what I can then do, zoom in on the high frequency layer. Now this is all of your detail. So I'll go into my either healing brush, which is J, and I'll just go around any areas that need to be I think it should do for now, just for the. So let's zoom out and let's see how this looks. Brilliant. Okay, so this is the mixer brush method of doing it. So what I'll do is just close that down. If I hit the eye next to it, what you'll be able to see is a before and after. So this is the mixing brush, like I said. You can see it's evened out all of the skin tones. It's all the shadows. I've basically told it exactly where I want the shadows to be. So it's like it turns you essentially into the makeup artist. So always best having one. But if you need to do makeup, you need to. In fact, I'll show at the end some changes to the makeup. Now you can use the additional brush layer that I've created, the additional color layer in there. Click this one, the color work one. Moving on to the second editing option now, we're going to use the lasso tools and the filters, the blur filters, to essentially just give you a separate way of editing, should you prefer it. Frequency separation 8-bit action, I'm going to play again. 17 I know is okay because that's what we used for the image last time. And now instead of using the mixing brush, what I'm going to do is just quickly duplicate my low frequency layer, Command and J, Control and J. And going to zoom in. About there should be fine. I'm going to turn off my high frequency layer again. I'm going to choose my lasso. I'm going to draw around the objects that I want to, or the areas that I wish to affect. And I'm going to press Shift and F6 to open the feather radius. Going to maybe do about 12 pixels. What you do is dial down the radius as you get closer to higher levels of contrast. I'm going to hide my selection. I won't do this every time, but Command and H or Control and H. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust this higher or lower until it affects the color layer. So you'll know when you've taken it up too high, like that. And all you need to do is dial it back until you get a nice blend. So if you watch the darker area here, you'll just see it blend in. It's there. It's blended, so that's absolutely fine. I'll go to OK. I will tap, because if you tap when you've got a selection on, it will deselect it for you. You're going to go around this area here again, exactly the same, Shift and F6, 12. Instead of constantly going filter, Gaussian blur, I'm just going to press the shortcut here, which is Control Command and F. So that will just repeat the filter that you've just done. So draw around, Shift and F6, okay with that, Control Command and F. Area here, Shift F6, Control Command and F. Now, as you get to more difficult areas, so this is a complete change to over here, we'll go back in and adjust the amount of blur, but for now, Shift and F6, 12 pixels, hide that, Command and F. Now I feel that's too much, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and that way I'm just going to dial it back a little tiny bit, and that's a bit more natural, 20.4, there we go. So tap to deselect, go around this area. Now, what I'm going to do, turn on the high frequency layer so you can see the difference, see what it's done. New layer, so that's the brush one. There we go. So this is the frequency separation with the lasso and Gaussian blur. And this one above it is a flattened version of the one that we used the brush for. So let's just zoom out a tiny bit. So here we go. Here's the lasso tool one. Here's the brush. It is entirely personal choice which one you will prefer. I prefer the lasso version with the Gaussian blur, just because I can control it a bit more. I tend to, because I come from a background in illustration, I tend to kind of reconstruct the light and shade. It's a great thing to be able to do, because I like creating light coming in from different directions and enhancing the light and everything, but sometimes it's very, very easy to go over the top. Whereas with the Gaussian blur and the lasso, I find it maintains the contours a lot better. You'll find a lot of people use the brush tool, and that's brilliant. You just have to rein yourself in a little bit more on the effect. One of the brilliant uses I find for this, before I end this tutorial, I'm just going to create a makeup brush. I'm just going to go smaller. I'm going to zoom in close. I'm going to pick, let's say, a purple here. So I'm going to choose that purple. Big brush. I'm going to set my flow at 1%. And I'm just going to add some makeup. Now, I'm not worrying about going over the darker bit here, because I'm going to use another little pro tip to get rid of that. But let's say we're adding some of this purple in for the eye makeup. And let's turn the flow up a little tiny bit. Let's go with 4%. And I'm going to adjust the colour of the eyes just so you can really see what's going on with this layer. Obviously, you tone it down a little bit for this side because that's very bright. What we're going to do now is we're going to use blend if. So if you double click on the side of the layer, we want the effect and the purple to be removed from the darker areas of the underlying layer. So all we need to do is click and drag this. However, it's very heavy-handed. Just see that horrible sharp edge, and that's not what we want. So if we hold down Option and click, or Alt and click on it, it will split in half, which means we can do it nice and subtly. You see how that's just really gently blending the effect in and out. There we go. I'm going to end that tutorial there. So that's how I use frequency separation. For high-end products, high-end portraits and retouching projects, then dodge and burn, micro dodge and burn, etc. is, I find, much better, more professional. You get much more professional results. Takes forever, but it's worth it in the end when you look at it. This is brilliant for faster portraits, for changing colours, for adding makeup, changing pupils. Yeah, just that took 2 minutes to change the makeup. And if you do it subtly enough, obviously you've always got your opacity as well that you can lower down just to add hints of it. It's just how precise you can be with the brush and the flow. You can always go in with your lasso or your magic wand and select the red and change that underneath the detail layer. It's very versatile. I will, as I said, leave the downloadable version of my action in the description. If I can figure out a way to attach it to the video, hopefully should be able to. And if you have any questions or suggestions or anything, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.